What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We're here with AJ and Luke from the Doopy Brothers to talk the Philadelphia Union's 2024 season. AJ, Luke, how you guys doing? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Excited to be on. And excited to shake off some podcasting rust with you guys and Luke.
Yeah, I'm excited. Appreciate to be here.
Yeah, I'm also here with my co-host Connor. So it's four of us. Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Glad that you are here. Before we jump into anything, I got to know, brothers doing the pod. How'd that happen? How'd we get there?
We saw the Kelsey brothers, and we were decided, we got to do that.
Either Swift chose Travis over me, and then their pod blew up, and we're not in it for the fame, unlike those guys. It was just a matter of us talking soccer too much. Our spouses saying, you guys should stop talking around us and just do it privately. And so then we just started recording it. For some reason, people started listening, and Luke's been wrong ever since we started. So it's been a fun time.
Yeah, it's been great. Along with that, I want to shout out Matt Ralph, who runs Philadelphia Soccer now, used to run Breath of the Game of the SB Nation Network. He kind of reached out to us when we were first starting, and he said, you guys are great. You guys want to kind of be associated with our website, and we did. And Matt's great. Matt became a good friend of ours ever since. And I want to shout him out because he kind of made us more of a legit podcast than we probably would have been on our own through his website and that kind of audience too.
Oh, that's sick. So that's funny. We got started very similarly. We were just talking all the time, decided to put it on, and started back in 2020, and Connor's been wrong ever since. So, it's really funny how that works, as much as we love to sit here and talk podcast origins in the past, I know people want to talk Philadelphia Union of the present and future, but we can't do that until we talk about Scarf of the Week. We got some really cool ones out here. AJ, I'm going to throw it up to you first because you're on top of my screen here. So what you got?
So this is actually a team that I don't play for. It's Sporting Serotonin. It's Luke's team. And it's a team run by Paul Catrino and a bunch of Luke Philly guys. It's all based around mental health. And it's just a really cool vibe that they have going on. If you get a chance, check out their Instagram. They're always promoting positive mental health stuff. And they just hilariously don't get promoted year after year. So
we're in the 7th division of 7 in this. It's called the Casa Soccer League. It's the biggest league in Philly, and we're at the bottom. We've made it to the promotion final the past 3 seasons and have lost every one of those finals. But this spring season, I think we're gonna make it. We're gonna do it. But I appreciate AJ for repping us, and it's a great group of guys, and the message behind it's been amazing, and I just love being a part of it.
Oh, that's so sick. We're going to make sure at the end, we're going to give you time to plug links and stuff. Make sure you get that out there because I want to know where to find that because that seems
cool.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Luke, you want to show off a kit? If I think
sure.
We're going
kit
of the week with you.
Yeah. So AJ got me this Newcastle vintage long sleeve red and blue Newcastle jersey. That's dope. I literally got it tonight, threw it on, and it's great. It's I don't know, AJ, do you know what year this is? It's a pretty old one, but it's awesome.
I don't know, straight from China though, I will tell you that. So I ordered it back in the 90s, and it finally made it across the sea.
Yeah, he got it when it just came released, and arrived today. So perfect.
That's awesome. It's a sick kit. It looks awesome. I'm gonna make sure we find out what year that is for you. So we'll get that before the end of the show. Connor,
sounds good.
What are you rocking, buddy?
All right, so I sincerely apologize to the Philly fans listening. I do not have a Philly scarf, so I had to break out a scarf associated with a player that I'm going to talk about today, and that is an NYCFC scarf. So
wow.
I'm not going to spoil it, but we'll find out who that is later. Although I'm sure plenty of people probably already know who that's referring to.
Couple ideas.
I also don't have a Philly scarf, but that's because I'm a Red Bull fan and I won't put that on my wall. I'm sorry. I'm not really that sorry, but I'm a little sorry because I got a couple of buddies who are Philly fans too. So, I'll keep it in memory. But I did stretch this one because I also didn't want to pull up like this player played for a random MLS team because we do that all the time, and I have other scarves. So I went in and I found a league that you guys have pulled from at least twice on the current roster. And it corresponded with one of my scarves. It's backwards. Of course it is. It always is. In FC Copenhagen. So one of your new signings, Sanders and Gabo. And then also Miko Ure coming from the same league. So a bit of a stretch, but I figured it was cooler than being like, when we did Austin, I was like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't have Austin. Here's a Celtic scarf because it's green. Like I figured it's a cooler connection than just that.
Very cool. Much respect.
No, I like that. That's sick.
Much appreciated.
Awesome. Well, as much as people, I'm sure, would love to hear all about our scarf stretches, we're here to talk a little bit about the 2024 Philadelphia Union. So Jim Curtin, one of the longest tenured managers in MLS, 10th season, 9th full season in charge, 4th in the East last year, 5th overall, 55 points, 15 wins, 9 losses, 10 draws. Personal opinion, robbed by pro referees in the semifinals of the MLS Cup playoffs. We can get into that. We don't need to get into that. I'm sure people have talked about it enough. I guess my question is for you. How are we feeling in Philly land going into Jim Curtin's 10th season?
Oh, I feel like that's a loaded question right now in Philly land. Luke, stop me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there right now are weirdly mixed emotions around Jim. I feel like the general consensus is everybody knows he's a fantastic coach who I feel like over the last few years has shown some growth. I feel like 2 years ago, he kind of learned how to adjust his subbing patterns because he was very consistent. Last year, he added a 3-5-2 formation. So we've seen some growth within Jim, but the team seems to be sitting at the ceiling of where he might be able to take us. And that's where people have kind of started falling off the Jim Curtin train. Love him. He's now I'm a fan. We've met him. He's super nice. He came on our pod very generously. But I know there are plenty of people who are ready to bring in some fresh blood in the coaching realm as far as they think our players are good enough, but maybe we just need a coach to push us over the edge. Luke, what did I get right and ignore what I got wrong?
No, I mean, I guess that's basically right. It is a weird mixed emotions with Union fans. Like, we've been a good team. We've gotten far. Like, last year was a generally good season, but if you ask most Union fans, you'd say like it was a pretty mediocre season because we were so close the year before, and we just weren't the same team last year. We didn't have the same fight and like goal scoring ability like we did the year before. So coming into this season, it feels like we haven't gotten any better. And last year we kind of felt like we regressed. So it's like, what is really going to be different this year? And even though we still have a great core, a great group, a great, talented roster, what's going to happen with basically the same team that going into this new year? And like we're big Jim fans. He's gonna throw in a little every year. He throws in a little wrinkle. Like last year, it was the 3 in the back. That was a new thing he did, and he kind of adds these little things each year as he grows as a coach. But yeah, we're just like we've seen enough of this that like we don't know if it's gonna really get us to that trophy that we really need, and like and part of it is also spending on the roster. Like we have an owner that doesn't have as much money as a lot of other owners, so we're kind of playing with less cards than most other teams. So there's a lot of skepticism, even though there maybe shouldn't be, because we do have a good team compared to like 5 years ago. We have a great team compared to like at the beginning of the Union's 10 years. So it is a weird situation for us right now.
It feels like the GTA meme of "Oh shoot, here we go again." It's like we're about to walk in. That's what it feels like right now.
Yeah,
but it's Jim Curtin.
from a Red Bull point of view, I can agree with you. I'm in the same boat. So I'm going to reserve my comments and my thoughts for a later section, a common phrase that we've used in this series because it seems like everybody is kind of in similar mindsets. But I guess one of the things I want to ask you first, you mentioned that your owner isn't as deep pocketed as others, but you guys have made some moves and have retained some talent. What do you think has been the best move or addition that you've made in this window?
I mean, I think the biggest move is keeping Kai Wagner. I mean, he's just the best left back in the league, and his talent is immense, and his assist rate is higher than some midfielders, and so that's been great. He had his the situation with Bobby Wood, and that made a lot of Union fans be like kind of happy to be done with him, and understandably so. And that feels like that's in the past now, from what we hear. But having that player on the field is a huge addition, you could say, because the replacements for that position on the roster were going to be younger guys that just wouldn't be able to produce what he could do, and he's just such a high end talent to keep on this roster. That feels like a huge addition, even though he's been here for a while.
Yeah, other than that, it's been pretty quiet. As far as players coming in, gosh, I couldn't tell you a single team that we've brought a playable player in for our first team. Looking at the salaries they brought in, no one's even come close to $500,000 spent this off season. Our only attacking player came from the third division of Spain. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, great, rinse and repeat. It's not like the team's been broken as long as we're keeping it all together. But again, are we really going where we want to go with what we have had the past 2 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that some of these homegrowns just keep progressing. I am really excited about what Quinn Sullivan could do in potentially Bedoya's role. I feel like there's been a lot of positive comments from Curtin over this preseason that like he's filled in that position and looked pretty good. And in the one preseason game that we actually got to see Quinn Sullivan played in that right midfield role that Bedoya plays, and looked like the best player on the Union side during his time on the game. So I think there is some interesting possibilities there. Jack McGlynn is also I feel like he's gonna own that left side of the diamond too. And he's such a great talent and progressed last year, and hopefully he keeps progressing this year and is a big time contributor to the offense that I kind of desperately need. I'm kind of interested in Sanders Gabo. We haven't really seen a lot of him in that one preseason game. He looked pretty good too. He could be an interesting midfielder to kind of like fill in the depth, but not really a difference maker. But he's young, so having these guys kind of fill in could be potentially good signings, but I don't think they'll be immediate impacts.
Sorry, guys. I know you asked about new people, and Luke talked 2/3 of the time about people we already had. So apologies for Luke.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be new to the first 11, I'd say, though. I mean, we don't really have new guys. That's the thing. Like, this is the same roster. This is, the first 11 is going to be guys. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone.
Luke, tell us about Alejandro Bedoya. Luke, tell us about Bedoya.
I want you to take that section and just want you to hold on to it because we've actually got a section about players to watch or breakout players, somebody who might step up from last year that we haven't seen. And that might fit in really well right there. So I love the forward thinking. I love the forward thinking because you're right. And that's kind of the reason we added that too. So we can talk about both at the same time. But Connor, I kind of want to ask you as well. What do you think from a neutral point of view, what, the best addition has been?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're asking here. If you're talking about the best move in the offseason, it's unquestionably bringing back Kai Wagner. He is, in my opinion, the best left back in the entire league, and I thought for sure he was gone. So to bring him back, I think is an amazing job by the Philly front office. So unquestionably for me, that's the best move. If we're talking about the best addition, I really wanted to go Isaiah LaFleur here because I think it's a really good under the radar signing. But I heard, and it's really unfortunate, but I heard he tore his ACL already, which really sucks. I
Yeah.
still. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say I was excited about that signing too, and with if we weren't gonna have Kai Wagner, I feel like he was gonna be a really interesting left back to have, and probably was gonna get a lot of minutes. But yeah, it sucks with this injury that he's that got that setback.
Yeah, I heard he's a really good attacking fullback option. He played really well with Houston too and MLS Next Pro last season. So originally, before they re-signed Kai, I thought I was right on the same wavelength. I was like, I think he could have a really underrated season this year. And quite frankly, if they didn't have Kai, he might have been my breakout player. But now, unfortunately, he's probably going to miss all majority, if not all, of the season. But I still think long term he's the best addition this offseason. But in terms of just like next season, I guess I'll say like Berdesio. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Uh, I didn't really love any of the other moves from Philly, nor do I really see a ton of them making a huge impact like you guys were talking about. But I think, and if this information is wrong, I'm pointing my finger at Andrew because he's the one that told me about this. But if Mbaizo is potentially leaving, 'cause I heard there might have been some issues with having his family get here, so now I think he wants to leave. That would open the door, I think, for Berdesio to get minutes at the right back spot. So with that in mind, I ended up going with him just because I felt that he could potentially, out of all the new signings, have the most impact.
Yeah, that's true with Mbaizo. We do have Nate Harriel, who's been a good right back too, who he can play really across the line, but I think he should be able to take up a lot of those right back minutes. So yeah, the Bradescio signing, like he seems like a decent talent. But really just don't know where they see him fitting in because we have defenders. If he can play further up the field, maybe he'll fill in for take Bedoya's minutes. But yeah, he's an interesting one to look at. And there's the other one to mention from new signings would be the USL goalkeeper they signed, Oliver Zemle or something. Because but Blake's going to be great. Blake's going to take up all the minutes. But when he's on international duty and stuff, I think this kid should be a pretty good fill in, and should be better than um, Joe Bendick and whoever else we had. But this kid seems like a pretty legit. He was the top goalkeeper in USL from Louisville, so I think that should be a good safety net when Blake's not able to go.
It's really interesting, Connor. Sorry, the way Connor phrased thing was really, really. It just sparked a memory in me, and it's because when we do our team preview, we grade every transfer, and we put a grade and we put a little note. And Connor's phrasing was coincidentally the exact phrasing I used in my slide. That's so funny. I wonder how that happened. It must have been an accident. I myself went with Sanders and Gabo, not necessarily for now, but this guy when I looked him up on Transfer Market, the article was titled "The Next Serge Gnabry."
Right.
Like this dude has hype among hype among hype, and anybody who watches football outside of America knows Gnabry's kind of legit. So he might not make an instant impact. You mentioned he looked good, which is great. But even if he's not getting massive minutes right now, it's a great futures edition. It's a great setup for the next step, which I think is bread and butter for the Philadelphia Union, right? They very rarely do not have a position where somebody from a youth, either whether it be their academy or a youth signing, is ready to take that next step. So I like that. I think it fits the style that they want to play, the whole methodology of the club. I think it all is just spot on there. But with all these players in, there were a couple who had to go out. Not too many. Only 4 from my count on MLSsoccer.com. So are any of those really big losses? Are you worried about any of them going?
I'd say the one I hope Brandon Craig, he's being loaned out. I feel like last year we got into a bit of a pinch where we could have used another center back, but we do have 3 solid ones. But I don't think we're going to be missing anyone too much. I mean, like I said, this season really feels like a rinse and repeat as far as 11 plus subs. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I really like Brandon Craig from what I saw with the U20s. He just seems like a guy who I feel like can use some big boy minutes.
And I did like Andres Perea when he did get some minutes early in last season. He scored some goals in was it Champions League or Leagues Cup? One of the tournaments. He had a good performance,
Yeah, yep.
and he would be a useful midfielder. But I do feel like we just with like in Gabo, we have Jesus Bueno stepping up. The homegrowns are improving. It just feels like there's almost like a logjam of in this midfield depth of like young guys that can contribute but aren't necessarily like necessary starters. So like Prey was kind of in that mix. So getting rid of him, he's a valuable, he's a talented player, but I don't think we'll actually like necessarily miss him since we have all these other guys as well.
And one thing about Jim Curtin, just kind of going back to him, is he does get into a favorites frame of mind. And for whatever reason, certain guys just don't fit into his picture of play. It happened with Austin Trusty, Keegan Rosenberry, and for whatever reason, last year's incoming players, Perea being one of them, Joaquin Torres, they just really fell out of favor for Jim for whatever reason. And from what we saw, we saw these guys with potential, and so yeah, Perea is a good shout because not only is he not with us, he goes over to NYCFC, and he did well enough to make the permanent move. So that's a good shout.
Connor, your thoughts, and I can kind of guess I think where you're going based off of your scarf selection today.
Did I make it that obvious?
It would have been less obvious if more people left, but being that we're selecting out of 4 or 5,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Or if anybody else from Philly was related to NYC. I think this might be the only player.
Well, Matt
You got
Freese,
Matt Freeze. It wasn't
That's
this
true, yeah.
off season, but Matt Freeze is there. Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah,
that's kind of like the reverse right now.
Yeah.
These guys would smoke you in tic-tac-toe. I mean, no hesitation. They would
All right,
smoke
well,
you.
Matt Freese isn't on the roster and he left before, so cut me a little slack, okay? Yeah, I'm a really big fan of Andres Perea. I think he's been a great player since he was with Orlando. I thought he had some bright moments when he was with Philly, and I think he'll continue to have good moments while he's with NYC. And if you listen to the NYCFC episode, spoiler alert, but you will hear me singing his praise again. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it really isn't a meaningful loss for Philly, just considering how stacked they already are in the midfield with just so much talent there. So it ended up being that the other options that had fully like left the team this year just either didn't play or played pretty poorly. So I landed on Perea for that reason.
Yeah. I had a feeling everybody was gonna hit the others. So for our memes and our memes, Joe Bendick, because Joe knows, and when Jason was an Orlando fan for about a minute and a half, that's the only thing he said to me every time he texted me. So that's where we're going with that. So we kind of hit on this a little bit already, but we're looking here, and I know it's going to be tough because you're not really losing a ton. You haven't really brought in a ton, and you've got mainly the same starting 11. Is there somebody that we should be watching that could be a breakout player, or somebody who's going to step out of his, I'll call it a rotation role and maybe break into the starting 11 or things like that?
I mean, Luke, you said Quinn, and there's not really many more. I'd say the one that
Yeah.
the only other guy everyone kind of might already know would be Jack McGlynn, because Leon Flock is dealing with a lot of injuries, and last year they were kind of splitting the starting role. And Jack is my favorite player on the team with potential. I think more potential than anyone else that they've got on the team as far as homegrowns. So I'm honestly surprised that we still have Jack McGlynn. I'm surprised he didn't make a jump, but I never heard any interest. I just think he's phenomenal. but he's got the full-time starting role in front of him with Flock out.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess reiterate the point I made when I jumped the gun, but I do think Quinn Sullivan should be that player. Um, he's he's an interesting, like, he's got good technical skills. He's quick. He will drive to the goal when he's on the ball. Like, he has those abilities, and I think it seemed like, according to some quotes from Jim Curran, that he's been working on his defensive side, so that will earn him minutes for Jim Curran specifically, and hopefully make him fit into that Bedoya role rather than trying to eat up some of the striker minutes. That was kind of what he was doing last year off the bench. Um, I Yeah, I really don't see much else as far as like breakthrough guys. There's could be like a wild card like Ty Baribo, who's this striker that we signed towards the end of last year. He was just getting settled in, didn't get too many minutes last year, but we spent a good amount on him. He seemed to have a pretty decent pedigree from his previous teams, but so maybe he becomes an offensive contributor, because we got Julian Carranza, who is a fantastic striker, and it should continue that. But Michael Luo has been a kind of a letdown of a signing with what we paid for him and what he was doing when he was in Denmark. So if he's not hitting, Ty Briba could take advantage of that and maybe step in and become a big time striker for us. So that's, we don't know that that's really going to happen. That's possible, but we'll see. That's really the only other guy that I might be looking at there.
Nice. Connor, do you have anything different or anything you want to add?
I do have something different. And from a neutral perspective, and for probably a lot of other neutral fans, I think the easy answer here is Jack McGlynn. But I'm not taking the easy answer here. So, and I think people probably won't think about him because I guess he's technically kind of broken out already. But I'm going with Nathan Harriel. And this is on the assumption that Mbaizo leaves. But I think, quite frankly, even if he doesn't leave, Harriel could still win this position. And in my opinion, he should already be ahead of Berdecchio. When it comes to Mbaizo, I think they're pretty even. The relationship with those two kind of reminds me a little bit of when Dane St. Clair and Tyler Miller were on Minnesota. It felt like just such an even split between the two of them. But Harriel, his numbers last year defensively were amazing amongst fullbacks. Like, he was a monster defensively. And in my opinion, like, I think it's great to have attacking fullbacks, but at the end of the day, for me, fullback is a defense position. So I think defensive stats, having that first before adding the attack to your game, I think is really useful. Obviously, there's some exceptions, like the guy on the left side, Kai Wagner, who's amazing in the attack and still solid in the defense. But I think better known for his attacking. But yeah, I think the only thing, in my opinion, that Harriel is really missing at this point is just the consistent starting time. And I think it's reasonably possible that he gets that this year.
And he was invited.
AJ and I are big Harriel fans. We love talking about his defense. We're both defenders. I'm a right back, so watching him is inspiring, how well he plays defense, and he's definitely improving, and his aerial ability, when he gets in the box for crosses is getting pretty good. So that's another dangerous aspect to his game. So yeah, I'm all aboard with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. I like this. People are soft spots for positions they used to play. I was a goalkeeper, so I get soft spots for goalkeepers. Why I picked Joe Bendit. I like these guys. These guys are great.
There it is. Yeah.
So mine was one that, because there hadn't been an official announcement yet, I picked Brandon Craig, because I think, and I have this whole note here, that his Austin loan was a disaster. There are these rumors of moving to USLC, but whatever happens, his development is something to watch, right? Regardless of where it is, because there's tons of potential, but potential means nothing if you're sitting on the bench. So basically, I was saying the player that I was watching was Brandon Craig, whether he was on the field or getting a move, but I'm trying to figure out where that's going to end up being. But yeah, we talk about breakout players or players to watch, because you have teams like that who don't necessarily have players who are going to go from first draft pick to superstar, like Orlando City's every striker they've ever drafted, I guess.
Right.
But there are those players that you can watch to what we call take the next step. So the McGlynn's, the Quinn Sullivans, those sorts of players that, yeah, technically they've pretty much broken out. They're getting consistent minutes. They exactly what their role is. But taking that next step and being, doubling their assist tally or increasing their shot creating actions or things that are tangible that you can see, okay, they've definitely improved in this aspect, so those guys fit there too. So as we move forward with the rest of the season, what's the one question that's in your guys' mind that you're going to watch games kind of just thinking about, and we kind of talked about a couple of them already, but what's that one overlying question for this season?
I'd say mine is the third striker position. Where's that first sub impacting the game? We used to have Corey Burke, and he was a very hot or cold guy, but he knew his role, he knew his job, and he performed it very well. And I feel like I never gave him enough credit to that, because once he left, there was a very obvious hole that we could not fill. Trying to fill it with Quinn Sullivan last year, it just was not the same as having a big bull of a striker messing with the center backs, because we were not getting consistent goals out of Mikel Ewa like we were 2 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, we were scoring for fun against teams. And then last year, once those goals kind of dried up, we didn't have a change of plan. It was just that third striker position was kind of a hit or miss. So hopefully Ty Barabo comes in to be that guy who can provide a spark plug. We used to have a guy, Antoine Hopino, who was just this little spark plug come in, and he would just change the perplexion of the game, and it was awesome. He wasn't the most technical, he wasn't the best, but he would just sprint his little butt off until the end of the game. And so
he was our super sub before Elsinho.
Yes.
Oh, freeze! Sorry, we do not use that name on this podcast.
Oh no,
that name is absolutely out of. we have banished that name from the podcast.
I just realized that. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Hopino, great shout. But then you brought it to deep dark places that we don't like here in Red Bull land.
Understood.
Yeah, he's on the list with Rafa Marquez that we can't say anymore.
We can't talk about him either. No, but you're right. Those impacts that the second they step on the field, they're making a difference. And Elsinho was definitely one of those guys. And if you want Corey Burke back, you can have him. We'll take. I don't know. Give me your top 5 prospects and we'll just call it that.
Right. Like with Jim Curtin, like 63rd minute, we're subbing out Mikel Ewa and we're getting a new player up there. And that's part of the disappointment with Ewa is that we paid our biggest fee ever, and I don't think the guy has ever played 90 minutes. And for us not to have that second option to be a consistent contributor, that hurts us. So that's my biggest question from there.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. Where are the goals going to come from? I don't peg that concern on a third striker. I think it's more on how the front three click. We haven't even mentioned Daniel Gazdag yet in this conversation. He's our number 10 star attacker, and he kind of had a weird year last year where he had a bunch of goals, but they were basically all PKs. So if he's able to facilitate the offense a little bit better, I know it's not exactly his game, but if we're able to get him clicking a little more with creating more goals and creating more chances for Carranza, Nua, and whoever else is up there. I feel like we relied a whole bunch on trying to get transition goals, but we didn't really have a whole lot of speed at the attack to get behind the defense, or relying on these crosses from Wagner or Bizo on the right side. Like there wasn't an easy way to generate goals for the team last year compared to the previous year, like we keep mentioning. So if we're able to crack that code a bit, and maybe it's putting Gazdag in different positions or figuring out, a different formula up front, I think that's really what is going to determine our success this year.
Daniel Paz, dog. Never in doubt, baby. Step up, knock it down. 15 goals every year. You know it's coming.
I don't think
Hey,
that man
yeah.
has missed a penalty in MLS.
Nope.
It's a good bet to make. Keeps
Yes.
put a couple dollars on a Gazdag goal, and he usually will hit because he gets all those PKs. So
That's awesome. Connor, your question.
So, in my opinion, I think Philly is as we talked about, a very consistent team in terms of roster. So not a lot of turnover there. We kind of know who's going to be the starters. Consistent in the manager perspective. It's going to be a good team. I don't have a ton of questions about the starting lineup or how things are necessarily going to shape out. So my question is, and this is going based off of Philly's consistent track record in this regard, who is going to be the young player to break out this season? And I'm not talking about like breakout player of the segment that we were just talking about before, because someone like Harry L, I wouldn't consider as an answer in this question. I'm talking about like someone like Quinn Sullivan, or if Ngabo breaks out, or someone a little bit less well known who maybe gets, I don't know, 500 minutes this season and now starts to build on that Philly youth player hype.
So I've got two. Luke can't think of one. I've got two.
go for it.
So for you two kids, Caven Sullivan, Quinn's
I
brother.
knew he was gonna go there.
Yeah.
Are we really putting stock in a 14-year-old getting 500
Yes.
minutes in MLS this year?
I am.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it, by the way. Absolutely here for it. Get on the hype train, 100%. Let's do it.
And I love the way they're treating him. So he's down at preseason with the team, and Jim today was talking about him specifically and saying, because people are obviously asking about him, hyping him up, and Jim said he's a 14-year-old kid. His job right now is to be a 14-year-old kid. He's having fun out there, and that's what we want him to do. So I'm hoping he gets a lot of minutes with you two. I don't know what the role is in that, but I just had to give Caven a shout out. But the guy that I was going to say,
sure.
What? Go on.
I'm pretty sure Jim also said he was the best player on the field as a 14-year-old. So there is still hype that Jim is putting on the kid too. So
we're doomed.
We're
doomed. All right.
Well, when the one clip you see is this kid running down the line, hitting a fake Rabona, cutting it back, and then ripping a. The dude's got confidence. You got to give him that.
Yeah.
Where were all of us when we were 14? It's what were we doing? But the guy that I was going to say is currently with the Venezuelan Olympic team. It's a kid Riasco, and he's getting minutes with the Venezuelan team. They lost tonight to Brazil, but he got in against them. I think he would be in that realm of 500 minutes for the season. He'll get some opportunities here and there, so I'm hoping he's able to come in and show something.
Yeah, another one that I feel like is probably a stretch too, but I really want to see him is Jeremy Raffanello. He played a lot with U2 last year and had a lot of really good performances and seems to be pretty technically good and has a good shot. It could be a good offensive sub off the bench, late in the season. He didn't really get any of those looks last year. He was on the roster last year and Jim just didn't trust him, I guess. But he's a guy that from what I've seen from his U2 minutes, like he's got the talent that, we should give him a shot. And so I hope he gets that this year and is able to, take advantage of it because he seems like a pretty talented player that we could use.
Of course he's talented. He's Red Bull born and raised, baby.
I take it back. Never mind. I didn't realize. I forgot about that.
So Raffanello is a great shout, by the way, because he, coming through our system, it was one of those like, okay, we're looking at like 4 or 5 guys who 3 or 4 years out, but like showing more than your average 16-year-old, 17-year-old would be. And he was one of those guys. And when you guys took him off us, it was like, we weren't up in arms, but we weren't really happy about it. It was kind of like that kind of stinks because he could have been something. And I still think he can. So it'd be really interesting to see where he goes from there. Mine, and I kind of hinted at this before, is around our friend Jim Curtin. And is he the right guy to take this team to an MLS Cup? There's no denying his ability to take the team to the next level in the regular season, right? Since his appointment, I think he's only missed the playoffs twice. But in the playoffs, he's only made it to the conference finals, I think, twice. Every other time he's out in the first or second round. So and it's been more recent that he's been able to get to these later rounds. So it's a good trend, but it's always just missing that one thing. And I don't think it's always on Jim, right? You're when you're Philly going up against LAFC and their first sub off the bench is Gareth Bale, like it's you definitely are behind the eight ball there, but the question does need to be asked at times whether he's the right guy, and we kind of talked about it, right? So we don't need to dive too deep into it, but I think that's something worth watching. I don't think he's anywhere near the hot seat, nor do I think he should be. But it is a legit question for the fans that keep asking it. So definitely interested to see how that goes, but more interested myself in your predictions for this team at the end of the season. Where do we see them finishing?
Gosh, I feel like in general, me and Luke are pretty positive, but for some reason, I feel like we're mid-table, and maybe it's just been the trend. We were Supporter Shield, and then we went MLS Cup, and then last year, I don't know, you just kind of saw us kind of drifting down the table, and you see teams like Orlando, and Grant, I was listening to your guys' episode with the guy from Orlando, and just listening to what they've done and everything, like, man, they're already a good team, adding good pieces, and just looking at what the Union have done, it seems like they've gotten older, which is great for the homegrown kids. But what about all the old guys who are already veterans? And so I am embarrassed to say, usually I just assume MLS Cup or bust, but I think I'm going to look at 4th or 5th in the East.
I can't super argue with that, AJ, but I'm gonna try to stay a little more positive. I'm gonna say 3rd. I do think we might have like a slow start to this season, but I trust the experience on this team to have a good season and to continue to get results, because they know what they're doing. They know how to work this league. They know this. They have a little bit of experience with how to work around the Leagues Cup with this going into this season, like having the experience from last year and how to juggle the roster with all these games now. That I'd imagine they're going to seem a little bit more energized, even towards the end of the season. Hopefully, that's ideally. So I'm going to say they'll be at 3rd, and even though all these other teams are upgrading their rosters, I still believe in these guys, and I have a weird arrogance of I really don't feel afraid of really any other team just by watching the Union a lot. And now there's going to be the exception of Inter Miami now, so I feel like that's just a separate category that we'll just leave aside, and they'll maybe they'll win the league and be first, and we'll get the scraps. But I aside from them, I'm really not super afraid of all these other rosters on this in the Eastern Conference. So I still want to be positive, but I'll say 3rd.
But okay, all right, Luke, you're an idiot. So I can't believe you brought up Inter Miami, but we're not going to go into that. But also, like, with their experience, no, Luke, you're not an idiot. But with their experience, the difference between 3rd to 5th, with the way MLS playoffs are, I almost feel like it doesn't matter in a way. Whereas an experienced team like the Union, they might be able to be like, okay, we've got all these other competitions, but as long as we make it into the playoffs, then let's try turning it on, or let's just get into the big dance. It's almost like the Lakers right now. Like, hey, as long as they get into the playoffs, it's not a bad bet to bet on LeBron. And it's the Union. They've been consistent. They've got the veteran stuff. No, I'm not comparing LeBron to the Union, but
it seems like you just did that, but okay.
Jack McGlynn is LeBron James. They're twins. But just with the way the MLS playoffs are so inviting to teams, as long as you're decent, you're pretty much in the playoffs. So the Union should be fine. I don't think they're going to be stressed going down the stretch. Yes, they'll probably want to be in that top half to get the first home game, but otherwise, I don't think there is going to be much negative stress as far as that part.
I do feel like home field is a massive factor in playoffs, so that's going to be a push. But yeah, I guess other than that, I do kind of agree with you.
Of course.
You guys need to make a shirt of Jack McGlynn dunking on LeBron James with Jack McGlynn is better than LeBron James. I mean, Connor,
Tempting me.
you're
I am interested to make that.
do it. Connor, your thoughts.
My thoughts are I definitely don't want to be the guy to tell Pooley he's no longer the LeBron James of soccer. I'll leave that to somebody else to do. But I'm hoping that I can try and help inspire the optimism in both of you. In my opinion, this is unquestionably a top 4 team. It is a very consistently good roster. They know how to play together. You have one of the best coaches in the league. I know we were just talking about Jim Curtin, but he was literally like minutes away from winning MLS Cup against LAFC, a stacked LAFC team that we talked about as the best ever. And in my opinion, should have won 2021 MLS Cup, but got really unlucky with positive COVID tests against NYCFC. I think they absolutely would have beat NYCFC and definitely would have beat Portland.
Me and Luke were there for all of that. We have lived through all of those games, and it's been so painful. But thank you for bringing them up. Yes, go on, Connor.
Sorry, don't mean to rehash those bad memories. But yeah, I think for me, they're 100% a top 4 team. And if Daniel Gazdag can find that 2022 form, they are definitely in the running for a first or second place finish, in my opinion. So I'm very high on them. I'm usually very high on them, but
Every year.
it's a consistently really good roster. I mean, they're top. How long have they been like top 4 now? I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but
It's been a while.
I would say like 4, maybe 4 years in a row they've been top 4. Like that level of consistency in MLS is just unheard of. Like teams go up and down the standings all the time. So Philly just found something that works for them. They keep the guys that are doing well, and I mean, I know last year was a little bit of a disappointment, but I think Gazdag finds his form again, and this team is looking at a top finish in the East.
I also have them top 4. Connor not only steals my notes from our predictions or our transfer slides, but he also steals them off of my notes for this segment, apparently, because I had the exact same thing, right? Starting 11 is one of the best in the game. Good depth in a lot of good, important areas. Good set style of play that everybody's bought into, and faith in the manager. It's a top 4 team. That being said, I am closer to 3 or 4 than I am 1 to 2. There are a couple teams, not Inter Miami, actually. I don't think even Inter Miami's bought into Inter Miami right now. We just talked to some guys for Inter Miami, and they were not as high as some others might be. But there are teams that I think, I think I'll steal Connor's line here. The East is a bloodbath. It is just 7 teams that all realistically could finish in the top 4 spots, and it's whoever's on the day, right? So I think it's a top 4. I think that it's closer to 3 or 4 than 1 and 2, but I think home playoff game should be the expectation for the group. Anything less than that, I think, would be a little bit, from the neutral point of view, a little bit upsetting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just a jaded Philly fan right now. Eagles season, Phillies, it's just thing after thing. Embiid hurt, like we don't get nice things.
Nope.
All right, well then there's one last thing we have to do. Do we have guesses for what year that kit came out? Because I have it in front of me.
92.
I got 92.
I'll say 94.
94. Connor?
97.
You missed it. It's the 1995-96 away kit.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
All right.
Thing is 27 years old, I know, based off of dating myself. So
it smells like it, but all right.
Young Bucks. Young Bucks.
So AJ, Luke, thank you guys so much for coming out and chatting Philly with us. This was a ton of fun, and I honestly hope we can do it again. I'd love to run it back right now if we could, but this was a ton of fun. Thank you guys so much.
Dude, you guys are doing a great job. Really looking forward to listening to some of your other team previews. Probably not the Red Bull one, maybe not NYCFC, but some of the other teams I don't hate. No, thanks for having us. It is a lot of fun talking Union with you guys, and yeah, we appreciate you guys having us on.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Connor, this was a blast. I'm getting geared up for MLS season again, so thanks for helping that.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Like we mentioned, we want to make sure you guys have some time to plug some links. So go right ahead and do that.
Yeah, so the main one, PhiladelphiaSoccerNow.com. That's where you'll find our podcasts, along with any podcast feed, along with some great Philadelphia Soccer Union and Philadelphia Soccer in general content. And then Sporting Serotonin is my team that AJ was talking about earlier in the episode. It's just at Sporting Serotonin on Instagram is really the main one. They're on Twitter too, but it's a great team, great follow, and I think that's it for us. And and ours, Doopy Brothers.
God.
See, we don't do this a lot. We are a little rusty. Yeah, our Twitter is at Doopy Brothers, and that's the name of our podcast too. So you'll find that on any podcast feed as well as the Philadelphia Soccer Now website.
Awesome. You guys were a blast. Thank you so much. For our listeners, make sure you guys go show them some love. Go subscribe over there. We are doing it right now to Sporting Serotonin, so make sure you go follow that. If you guys enjoyed what we do, make sure you subscribe to us, follow us, because we've got 20 something more of these. It's 13, 17. I don't know where we're at right now. We've got so many left. But make sure you go ahead and follow us up so you can keep on track with that. And then once we get into the season, you're going to get the same, a little bit more of the same from last year. You're going to get our MLS current predictions, as well as our takes. You're going to get our MLS history segments, and you're going to get our games. So you're going to have a whole bunch of content real soon. So make sure you subscribe. Luke, AJ, thank you so much again for coming on, and we will see everybody next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.